Okay. Hello, everybody. It's Brian. It's Friday, not Tuesday. It's Friday. That's just how crazy this week has been. And it's a special episode, I think, of Break Education, Breaking Down Security. Uh, yeah, so if you look at the title on the stream, it says I got laid off. And that's exactly what happened. For those of you who might have seen in the news, Amazon laid off a good number of people. It ranges anywhere between 14 to 30,000, depending on who you talk to and where those existed. I just happened to be one of those lucky people. I won the lottery, the crap lottery, I think, in some cases. So yeah, like most people when they get laid off, gone are the days of coming into the office, having a sit down with your manager to sit down. I got a text message at 3 in the morning that I didn't see until I woke up that morning and went into my office, which is my home office, because I was working remotely at that point, and tried to log in and realized I couldn't log in. And like any normal person at that point, I said, well, might as well go to the gym. So I went to the gym and did my Tuesday workout as I am wont to do before I go to work. Um, Came back and calmly started working on the next plan, on the next thing, and waited for the inevitable meeting invite to be discussing with my manager about the goings on. I won't go any further than that because I don't want to say anything. It's not going to be negative. I don't put any people asked me, they sent me text messages of support and they said, are you unhappy with the company? I'm not unhappy with the company. It's a decision that had to be made by somebody. I love my team. I love the team that I was working with. My first concern when I was let go was, were they safe? And for the most part, I think all of them were. I'm very happy to say that. What this does now is give me the opportunity to flex my network. I have not been unemployed or without a job since 2011, which I think is probably a um, pretty good stint in the working world. I got laid off from my government contract position in Austin, and then spent a good 2 3 months, doing the typical, actually getting dressed up and going into an office and interviewing with somebody. And I met somebody by the name of Brian Betcher, who has become a very integral part of my life, as y'all are well aware. Um, I kid that I social engineered him to get me a job, but he saw something in me at the time that was, um, you know, it's almost like he was Butch and I was Sundance, and then later on we added to the family here and added Miss Berlin, Miss Amanda Berlin, who's doing amazing work in her own right. So yeah, between that and CrowdStrike and then Leviathan and then Amazon, and now I'm looking for another opportunity, and I'm trying to keep this somewhat. I don't want to say clean, but for people who might be like realizing that I do this on the reg, and I've been doing this on and off for the last 14 years. Sorry, 10 years since 2014. 10 years. I want people to know who I am because they might want to hire me, and the last thing I want to do is put off something like that there's a bad vibe. So um, I loved the time that I worked at Amazon. I think it's given me a very interesting perspective on how the the world works and how security works. I've become more pragmatic, I think, with regards to working security. Not that I was all like black and white, you must patch, that kind of thing, but you start really understanding the business side of things when you're working with business and product teams and security teams. And um, I've done a lot of work there. The bug bounty program, working with a lot of the product security teams, working on my own product security, as product security on a specific team that I worked with to launch and to post launch and maturity and what have you. You get to know what they care about and how you would want to get them to care about security as well. I actually just watched a video with James Whitaker talking about storytelling, and I might actually grab my wife's book that she took his class on how to properly tell a story. It's also going to be helpful when I go and interview with people as well to be able to tell a proper story about myself, the elevator pitch, if you will. So my plan right now is to, well, the minute one, I want to thank my entire network on LinkedIn and elsewhere for the, I would call it an overwhelming response. I've been receiving tons of well wishers, people who have been sending, "Hey, we're hiring. Let me know. I can put your name in for things." Obviously, it's good to have that connection to those companies and to have those people who would be willing to front you for jobs and suggest you for jobs and things. Um, haven't gotten interviews yet, but I haven't gotten the insta rejections yet either. So I'm doing good. We'll see. Starting next week, we probably will be. The next stream I do will be like applied for 25 jobs, got 50 rejections. Some of them even before I hit the send button, that kind of stuff. I'm hoping not. I'm hoping that things stay relatively positive. I know I'm not going to be, approved for everything, but I honestly don't know how the job market is right now. So it's all very much appreciated. Everybody who's been reaching out and hitting me up for positions and stuff. Uh, and I hope that others who are also looking for work are getting that kind of attention. I don't want to believe I'm the only person that's getting this kind of the number of people reaching out. I really hope that there are others out there that aren't struggling to just get their foot in the door with these things and um, because I understand the privilege. I have a podcast. I've been doing it for a while. I just want everybody to have a job, basically. Everybody who wants a job should have a job. And I feel bad if you see so many people out there posting on LinkedIn and other sites that's been 6 months, 7 months, they haven't found a job, and I'm like, I don't want that to be me, but I don't want that to be them either. And so I'm just trying to come to you know try to figure out if you see somebody with an open to work, uh, and they're not me, and give them a look, see what their LinkedIn profile looks like. Maybe it only takes you 15, 20 minutes to maybe take a look and see if there's something that they could do at your organization, or if they're looking for a security engineering position or looking for a business process improvement, or something like that. It wouldn't, the time it took you to contact me, you could also do that with them. And I'm just trying to make sure that our infosec brethren and sisters and other folks out there that are hurting for jobs are getting that fair shake that you're somebody's at least given me. So um, I have other people. I've actually had 3 calls this week with folks about various things. Some of them are just informational. I met with an amazing CISO, which I'm hoping we'll have as a guest on very soon. It's very infectious energy. He's a very cool person, and I enjoyed having a discussion with him. And I've gotten a mentor, which I can honestly say I don't think I've had a mentor in a few years, good number of years. People I've looked up to or discussed things with, but never done so. So I don't want to lose the ones of people that I have on my viewers. If any of you have any questions, please feel free to ask. If you're hiring and you're watching and you're watching this, um, feel free to ask your questions. I'm an open book. AMA, it's always AMA for me. And all the stuff that I've preached about networking and build your network when you have to and not when you are, when you want to and not when you need to or when you have to or when it's a thing. I'm going to test that theory now. So I'm going to be learning some things. And just like my good friend Rando, Danny Akaki, we're gonna go through this and we're gonna talk about those things. So um, you know, I don't know if there's any secret sauce to it about gathering a position or getting a position in 2025, especially in this job market. But we'll see. And I'm hoping that I will be able to continue with the kind of energy that I've gotten this week, just in the 4 days that I did this. I don't have time to sit and take vacation. I can sleep when I'm, comfortably ensconced in a new job or take some time off once I've done that. So my, I'll tell you what I have done so far. Tuesday morning, the first thing I thought of was what happened the last time I was without work. I found myself like going to Monster and Indeed and then LinkedIn, which was a much tamer place in 2011, LinkedIn and Monster and Indeed and all these job boards. I found myself searching for jobs and applying for them, and then forgetting I applied for them, and then going back 3 days later and reapplying for that same job, only to be getting an email saying, "Hey, you've already applied for this job." And I didn't want that to happen again because I was kind of doing it out of desperation. So I started a spreadsheet. It has the date I applied for the position, or it has the job title, it has the company, it has the link to the job, it has who suggested the job or a contact that I have in that organization. Sometimes it's like I don't have a first like level on LinkedIn kind of connection. I might have a second or third, and that job link will have a recruiter. I don't trust the LinkedIn positions obviously because they could be fake. So I always try to go to the company's website to see if that job is available. And yeah, and then I apply or realize it's not for me, and then I either pass on it or I will, have a little remark that says, "Hey, I applied for this." I usually color it in green on my spreadsheet using actually Google Doc of everything I've applied to. I think I've applied to about 15 jobs now. So yeah, and just trying to keep up on the status of those. And the one thing I will be doing on like next week will be following up with the people that I told I applied because they're the ones who are going to help shepherd this into the hiring managers. So I would follow up with those folks on Monday or Tuesday with just a quick LinkedIn DM. Hey, I applied for this job. Did you hear anything? Or is there just to see what's up there. So. Um, I have, yeah, since I've not done this for nearly 15 years, the landscape has changed a little bit, and so I'm hoping that it's going to be good news. Maybe my next stream on Tuesday with Miss Berlin and Mr. Betcher will be, um, hopefully, it will be somewhat positive. And yeah, so I'm looking. I don't want to say I'm looking forward to trying to find a job. I really really want a job, and yeah, I'm just, if you're looking for a job, please feel free to mention it in chat. And, I would be remiss if I didn't say, could, send you along or suggest you to somebody if you're looking for a position. So, um, well, you know, because I know some people who are regularly on the show here. Hey, P1 Bibble, just landed a job and moved across the country. Wow. Okay. Okay. Congratulations. Good job on that. I am unfortunately a bit geo-locked. So, I have asked the organizations that say, hey, Chicago, Illinois, hey, would it be possible? Does hybrid really mean in the office? And they're pretty upfront. They're like, yeah, we need you to have them be in the office. Or if it's like Santa Clara, California, in this case, they would be like, for the right person in the right position, we will. Chicago, there you go. You know what? I don't hate Chicago. I don't have a problem with Chicago. It's just I have a daughter who's going into college, SDSU, this next year, and I have a mortgage, and I like San Diego because of the weather. So, I mean, I don't mind, I wouldn't mind some travel or whatever, but yeah, congratulations. You get some good pizza and stuff. Uh, yeah. So yeah, I've been talking to a lot of folks. There's just so many people that I don't know if it's they know me because of what I do here, or because I volunteered at like DEF CON, or just word of mouth kind of stuff. So I'm I'm interested to see in how this is going to work and shake out with regards to this, and it may be worth a talk at some point in the future. How I navigated through this, but my concern was that with all the layoffs that are going on, the market's going to be, and it continues to be, inundated with security people or people who are looking to make that shift, or you've got college graduates who are looking for positions as well. They may not necessarily affect my level of employment, but it all is part of the hiring process, and it's going to take some time, and I don't necessarily have that time. So. But congratulations, Pibble. Well done. Good job. Chicago's going to be lovely. It's going to be a little cool there. You might want to get a jacket or two or five. Dress in layers. Maybe dress in layers. But yeah, I actually did boot camp when I went to Navy. To the Navy, I went up to Great Lakes. I think it was the only one open at the time for me. Great Lakes. I went up there in November, December, and January, so it was about the worst time you could go through boot camp. So it was very cold, and so, but yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. Let me see what else. Oh, job descriptions. I've read a few. Read a few. Biggest thing that I've seen, at least at my level of job description, and so let me move my chat window up there. There's Pibble's chat. CISSPs, at least at the mid senior level that I'm looking at, like applications, senior managers or something like that. Most all of them want a degree. Most all of them want a CISP or some kind of certification like an ISACA, or I've seen a good number, especially for the incident response like managers that I've seen, or PCERT type jobs, product security, information response teams. Uh, SAN certs, GIAC, GPEN, GCIH, GWAP. I have the GCIH and the GWAP. Um, Good number of job descriptions also wanted like coding experience, which, um, as many of you know and have watched the streams, I do not come from a coding background, and I could not comfortably tell people, yes, I named my firstborn Python. My middle name is Rust, and my last name is Pearl. I actually saw Perl as a scripting requirement on one of the job positions. But so if the minimum requirements for a senior manager is you must have knowledge of a programming language, I have to worry about that, and I have to reach out to a recruiter and go, is that really a hard requirement for a senior manager, especially if you have a team of four and I need to know that. I mean, I can look at the code, but I'm not going to audit it necessarily. I'd probably run it through an AI that wouldn't get me fired to find out if there's some real legitimate issues there. Um, but yeah, that's the coding requirement is about the only thing that I've had a real heartburn with on a good number of these things. For the most part, a lot of the job options make sense. I mean, they're not looking for gold-plated unicorns. I really think that maybe some people have gotten it in the last couple of years here with regards to unrealistic job descriptions. I mean, I've literally seen a job description a few years ago for a Linux administrator that there were no Linux requirements in it. It was like you need to know Oracle, you need to know, Windows, you need to know networking, but there wasn't really a lot of Linux in it. Some of the job descriptions um, a lot of the job descriptions I've seen mostly make sense. The only outlier is the coding experience, and I don't know if that's some kind of coded, must understand AI kind of stuff. But I haven't seen a lot of AI on a lot of these job descriptions either. So that's interesting too. I'm not afraid of AI. I'm actually, was starting to work with it a little bit when I was in Amazon for various things. I've also been vibe coding on boot.dev, which some of you have seen. I actually think it's kind of cool that there's something that can tell me when I can't do something and show me a solution to that. It's like Stack Overflow was back in the day. So yeah, that's that's what I'm doing right now. I am uh, constantly work. I'm actually I don't want to say I'm actually busier now that I'm not working, but just handling all the inbound communications from LinkedIn and sending out thank you notes to everybody who's trying to send as many well wishers as I can, as many good vibes as I can. And I need to update my resume. There are some formatting issues. A lot of the jobs also require, like, if you try to use it for manual input, I have gotten a few scammers asking me if they want to pay $5,000 to make my resume ATS compatible. Hey, Beta Wolf. Yes. What? Did they lay you off because you kept being the too good looking one in the group all the time? So they got jealous. Unless everybody in that company is blind, I don't know how you can consider me the good looking one. Um, Thank you, Beta Wolf. I appreciate the you have a very low bar for attractiveness, I think, in this case. But no, it just is what it is. They have. I think if you read the news stories, they wanted to flatten the organizations. Um, Being a technical program manager, project manager at Amazon, was they see those as like another level of architecture, another level of hierarchy, and they wanted to be nimble, be leaner. I think that's all in the news. It's not anything I'm telling that's out of the ordinary. I actually didn't. I don't. I actually only read about that on the news. So um, I get it. They want to move a little faster. They want to use AI where they can. I'm not against using AI in any way, shape, or form. I think it's a nice automation is always a good thing. So I think that's it's probably a good thing. It's just unfortunate that you know I just happened to be one of the several hundreds thousands that were caught up in that. It could just easily have been someone else in my position. So I have to remember that um, maybe they did it because they wanted to save somebody who would be deported or sent back to another country or something like that. So um, yeah, there's no rhyme or reason to these things. I think these days. So or whatever, like my wife said, whatever the reason was, it's unknown to me, and I can't dwell on that. Right? That's nothing I can do. It's done. So um. So yeah, I got some news. I'm gonna be here, Miss Berlin, Mr. Vetri, and myself. We'll probably talk more about it on Tuesday, but um, yeah, it's gonna be an interesting transition. I hope it's a short transition. And yeah, I'm you were putting your life. Oh, hey Walt, how you doing? Walt is a developer. He lives in the Seattle area. I don't know if you want to give out your exact location, but he is currently looking for a position as well. A lot longer than I have been. He's probably a few months. Walt is a talented developer, and he's been doing the boot.dev stuff quite a bit. He's fairly highly ranked on that website. So if you're interested in finding a developer, you can hit up Walt, CPO Parker. Walt, if you want to put your LinkedIn or something, please feel free to do so. I've known Walt for a good number of years. Oh, very cool. Okay, very cool. Uh, yeah, Yeah, handicap plates are good if you need those for mobility issues. But yeah, so we talk about news a little bit here. We have different topics. I've actually, last week I found a decent. Uh, I found a Google group, three Grandmaster badges on boot.dev. Um, well done. I think I only have one or two. I think I have one, at least for like length of time I've done it. I did it for like 160 days or something. But yeah, you've managed quite a few accolades on that site for programming knowledge. Um, yeah, so let me talk. There we go. So I found this Google Groups chatting with a friend about Evil Engine X. Wow. So it's weird you mentioned that. Okay, well I'm gonna scoot off this. So I found this Google Groups this uh, I apologize, Eyal Estrin posts some really interesting articles from various places. Some of these sites I've not heard of or don't have them in my RSS feed, but there's a lot of good information, a lot of interesting articles, some long form articles about that come up from time to time, and uh, some of them are about just stuff that you wouldn't necessarily see on the front page of news stories. So, proactive defender's guide to info stealers. So there's a Flashpoint blog post article about that, or your number one sign your cybersecurity skills are outdated. I don't want to look at that one because it might bum me out. Um, the 15 overlooks cybersecurity blind spots. I did take a look at that one. It's from CSO Online. And then one I saw today, the hidden cause behind 70% of today's major breaches. They say it's a toxic combination of overlapping risks that compound and amplify each other. And then uh, they say, laptop has been patched in months. Uh, so yeah, they go through several organizations here and what the overarching problems were across all of these examples. Breaches rarely hinge on a single vulnerability. They're always multiple risks that overlap. So, like we have chains in vulnerabilities where you can take several low severity issues or minor issues, they quickly become a larger issue. Um, you see it a lot in complicated systems or systems that maybe are taking on additional risk. Like if you're doing an M&A, like when we had Danny Akaki on talking about M&A risk, you're inheriting somebody else's network and you've got to integrate that into your own. Well, you take on their risks as well, or you're bringing in third parties that have to, have access to your data. You're taking on their somewhat risk as well, because if somebody was to breach their network, then they, depending on how the connection is, they can get into your environment. And I think we see that with a lot of breaches that are third party issues. And let me put this article up here. Panacea. I've not seen this site before, so that was interesting. Speaking of the Evil Engine X stuff, there we go. There was an article I read. Where is it? Yeah. So the creator of Evil Engine X, which was started as a cool red team tool that somebody could use to help cybersecurity teams understand and defend against phishing attacks. It was meant as a teaching device, a way for companies to see how easily credentials could be stolen and shore up their defenses before someone else did it for real. But obviously, once this went public, hackers began using it to break into networks, steal passwords, and sell access. We've seen this with other tools, and it's the age-old debate that we have of offensive tool research. The stuff that can be good used as a teaching tool can be bad. I think we've seen that with Cobalt Strike. We've seen it with Metasploit to a lesser degree, and so the the creator of it has he has some issues with it, and there's an article or a podcast that he's done about it. I haven't listened to the 12 minutes of it, but if that is something you'd like to listen to from recorded media, um, I think we see that with a lot of folks. I think when Mick Douglas came out with his tool for PowerShell, PowerCat, he said he'd gotten some hate mail because people said that it was being used for evil in his environments. Um, when Cobalt Strike's code was leaked, same thing happened. It became the software du jour of bad guys all over the place. Same thing with Nginx. Um, and he's let me see. He offered, yeah. So he ran into some issues here. He said he would never want to aid, Russian actors who are using his tool for evil. He said to blunt the damage, he offered scale back public versions of Nginx. He removed the most dangerous features and inserted Easter eggs, bits of code that allowed researchers to spot when evil Nginx was being used in the wild. The full version that he had was sold privately to vetted security firms. A bad person will always use the tool badly. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't even have to be an offensive tool. You can use Splunk in an evil way. You could use, well, DNS has been used apparently fairly evil ways in the last couple of weeks, bringing down cloud environments. Um, he said, "I know that I'm basically by proxy aiding the bad guys, but I also want to support people who can't afford the private version to help strengthen their defenses." Um, that's it's they have. I would like to believe that people who create tools like these realize, or at least think about, what happens if a bad guy uses these. The ethical part of me, which I find myself stuck in an ethical dilemma sometimes, is if I had a tool like that and I knew it was going to be used for evil, would I release it? And seeing examples like this, or like PowerCat or Cobalt Strike, I'd have to say that if I had the wherewithal to do coding, one, I'd probably be at a better job. I wouldn't have to worry about those coding things on the resumes that or the job descriptions that I'm looking at. But I don't know if I could release my code in an open source format, or in such a way like that, or take it to a conference and talk about this cool tool I built, and then, oh yeah, I'm going to release it on GitHub in a couple of days. I don't think I could do that stuff, which is one reason I probably moved to a PM role, because I knew didn't have I didn't have the blurry ethics to be able to say, yeah, just do whatever you want with the tool, and have it done. So, uh, sorry, I don't have work that I'm monitoring now. I actually took my two big monitors on my desk, and I'm using it down here. So, sorry, ordering dinner. So, there we go. All right, there we go. Yeah, I did. That, and I actually got, somebody said I was a little too ethical the other day with regards to you know uh, some of my viewpoints, but I think we have a lot of, it's great that he created this, and it's great that he has a pro version and he's trying to do what he can to stem the tide here. But once you've given the open source version, they're going to make changes to that. They're going to make improvements. Nginx has driven improvements across the industry. You've got engineers who are, hardening their authentication systems, which is great. There's some positive that has come out of the tool that has been released, but like most things that we see, we only remember the bad things that come from it. So I appreciate the fact that they mentioned hardening authentication systems here was important. Um, he says 7 years later, Evil Nginx straddles the line between innovation and threat, a living example of what happens when transparency collides with opportunism. Gretzky remains convinced that shining a light on flaws is better than pretending they don't exist, even if that light sometimes spills into the wrong places. That's pretty nice. I guess this goes back to the engagement model. You've got blue teams out there that maybe they don't know how to set up an Nginx kind of thing. So along comes Nginx, which is a tool that allows them to do just that thing, so they can create that condition of change that they need. If they're telling me, their management that this is something that needs to be addressed, blue team, or sometimes you hire a third party to come in. Wondering if a good passkey setup would help against it. That's a good question. I wonder if it would be worth it to have Mr. Gretzky on to talk about Evil Engine X. Um, I might. Thanks, Walt. I might reach out to Gretzky and ask if, because obviously he does podcasts, so maybe he could come on and talk about his ethical dilemma, or we can talk about whether or not good passkey setup would help against that. So, but yeah, obviously, because these things exist, changes have been made, but it's an arms race. We have people continuing to make changes to improve their attacks. They improve their own run books. Hey, this worked now, but they've made these changes, so we need to fix those deals. Uh, but it was interesting. You said you were just talking about Evil Engine X, and then I was actually going to talk about the story. I actually meant to mention it last week, but we ran out of time during our discussion with Miss Berlin, so I was just wanted to add that bit there. So, and also the 12-minute podcast, you can talk about that. So, uh, so yeah, I mentioned the 15 blind spots in cybersecurity. I was just looking through this one the other day because I was like, is there anything new? Because this is an opinion article from this contributor, uh, Maman Ibrahim, uh, trying to find areas where 15 blind spots, no overlaps, no omissions, just a clean checklist you can assign, measure, and close before attackers find them first. And NTP drift, sure. Um, some of the solutions, I've actually looked through a couple of these. Some of the solutions, I'm like, sounds good. I don't know if that's I don't know if that's worth the time, because one of the, like, NTP drift, enforce a secure NTP hierarchy with authenticated sources, monitor offset religiously. You can definitely log those things. Like they mentioned, your SIM will thank you, and your incident responders will. Um, your logs should be in UTC time. I don't know if that's mentioned down anywhere on here, but you should be using a unified time. You shouldn't have Pacific time on your servers, Eastern time on your cloud, whatever cloud availability you're in. Using your UTC would be helpful for everybody. Crony is a good one. What was the other one that I used way back in the day? I forget. There was another one very similar to Crony. There was like another NTP solution. I've actually had people suggest NTPS, which is the NTP over TLS or whatever. NTPS, not National Test Pilot School. Oh man. Okay, let me do that. No. Okay. Secure NTP. Yeah, using authentication and encryption to ensure time synchronization isn't tampered with. NTS, sorry, modern standards NTS, cryptographic security for network time protocol. It's great, except some devices, IoT devices, there's a big lift there for that, and you use Beta sundials. Oh, those are so old. They don't work at night. That's the problem. You gotta go to sun. You gotta go to the hourglasses and stuff afterwards. Or roosters. Roosters are really good when the sun comes up. They tell you when it's nighttime and stuff. It doesn't translate well into logs. Sundial says you can't put that into a log file very easily. Um, but yeah, so the idea is, they want to reduce the host in the middle or the attacker in the middle kind of attacks that would alter or manipulate log files, or cause you kind of where processors are time sensitive in this case. So, but yeah, NTS is not easy to set up. There's and there are some organizations that it's not worth it from a business point of view. NTP just works, right? I use time.nist.gov because it's NIST time servers. Um, but yeah, there's they do mention that scalability. If your clients can support NTS, great. But there's a risk and reward there. I've got you got a moon dial on the other side of the house, and I have a rooster that looks at them and yells. Your rooster yells. I want to see that. I definitely want to see that. Time for my weekly Bear J hot towel straight edge. There you go, Walt. They move, which is recorded by a microphone, which is set to home. Jeez, I'm not sure I want to. There's a lot of moving parts to your time system there, Beta Wolf. I'd be worried about it get breaking down. What happens if your rooster, there are coyotes in Seattle. If your rooster got by a coyote who would, yell at you when your sundial hits the other side of the house. I'm sorry, your moon dial hits the other side of the house. Um, but yeah, I mean these are great solutions. It's definitely a solution if you found some reason in it. But yeah, set alerts for drifts beyond 100 milliseconds. That's a lot. Uh, if you have processes that need 100 milliseconds or better kind of time frame, that is definitely something you would want to engage. Um, Events like logins. Like it really depends, right? Logging gaps, yeah, logging gaps would be bad. You might want to investigate that. Every endpoint needs EDR coverage, log every identity action, capture every control, cloud control plane chains, centralize signals, validate completeness on a weekly basis, and actually test whether your detections are effective. Yeah, I guess you're always creating logs, right? Everything is generating something, even if it's, hello, I'm still here, or your logs are still working. Uh, yeah. Uh, yeah, I mean, and with the amount of stuff in your centralized logging system, something is going to be logging something sometime. So if your log files are missing a couple of minutes, that might be definitely something you would want to review and look at. Identity and edge. Attackers favor the path of least governance. Least governance. Okay. Service principals, BYOD, and devices nobody owns. Privileged service accounts with domain admin rights and passwords set in 2019. Yep, that's not a good one. Start your inventory tomorrow. Map every service account to an owner. Enforce least privilege ruthlessly. Rotate secrets quarterly or move to managed identities. And enable MFA where possible. Yes, even for service accounts. I don't know. MFA even for service accounts? I feel like that's a recipe for disaster. Being if your service account, you would have to hope that everybody on your team would have the same MFA solution or be able to enable that or have some kind of break class for that. I would have to look at the feasibility of that. That may actually cause more problems than it would, because what happens if the service account, you know, what happens if you do need to enable that? I could see having some kind of centralized, I don't know. I could see you putting an MFA on some kind of device that doesn't go anywhere and stays secure in your environment. It's not attached to any one person. I know that social media accounts, like trying to set 2FA or MFA on a social media account where there's 15 people who might be connecting to that account, turns into a nightmare real quick unless you're using some kind of centralized solution. Yeah, I don't know about service accounts. Monitor continuously for anomalous behavior. Yeah, I mean, if it's a service account, you shouldn't be logging into that on a regular basis. So anybody who's using that for a login, or if you see password lockouts, or you see somebody, see a password attempt on a service account, that's probably not a good thing. And that's where you want your logs above to be logging that kind of stuff. These accounts don't take vacations. Unusual activity means compromise. Exactly. BYOD sprawl. Yeah, enforce MDM or MAM would be great if um, I I don't put work stuff. I've not put work stuff on my personal phone for years, mainly because I don't trust the MDM solutions to do what they say they do. That's a little bit of paranoia on my part, but I'm more than okay with having like another phone or a small device like an iPhone SE or something like that, where I can put that MDM on there and gain the work access without polluting my personal environment. Yes, I understand that Pixel devices have partitions and separate sections inside of them, but I don't I've seen a bad MDM push wipe phones, and people complain about losing things like baby pictures and address book contacts. I just don't want to put myself in that position where I'm losing 15 years worth of pictures that I have backed up, but like address books or whatever. So I always have a separate device because I just do. Um, and you've heard me rant continuously about separating personal and work stuff, so I don't put personal stuff on work computers. So it just is what it is. Yeah, BYOD sprawl. Yeah, I think I would imagine you're seeing BYOD sprawl where it's compromised device leading to persistent access. I definitely want to have that if that's a requirement. You would want to have MDM or some kind of way of tracking stolen devices to wipe them if they've been stolen out of somebody's car because I just went into Starbucks for 5 seconds and somebody took my laptop or something like that. Um, Insecure printer IoT devices. I don't print anymore, so that one doesn't bother me. The IoT devices, yeah, those are important. My router at home has a separate IoT network. It has a like a 5G network, which I put like this laptop is on, our TV is on because it's the fastest network. There's an IoT network which is like 2.4 gigahertz. It's separate. It's on its own access point, and then there's the guest network, which is where I put my work device. I had my Amazon laptop on the guest network because it was isolated from the rest of the devices on the network. I couldn't print to the printer in my wife's office. Um, and frankly, I didn't want anything that might have been running on the Amazon laptop client wise to be doing things like network, scans or endpoint security doing something like that. Or what if one of you nice people like Beta Wolf, said, hey, click this PDF that I want to see, and it's not really Beta Wolf, but I click the PDF and it infects my MacBook, and then it starts moving laterally in my network. My Amazon laptop would be on the same network, and I don't want something coming through that network into my Amazon laptop. So when I worked at CrowdStrike, I had a separate Wi-Fi connection and infrastructure there. Negative 10 of 10 that would do that. I appreciate that, Beta Wolf. Thank you. And I know you're a fine, upstanding InfoSec hobbit of the finest caliber, so I know you wouldn't do that. But so yeah, I take pains to isolate my work to protect my work, but also to protect myself from my work. Yeah, it is what it is. I don't expect everybody to do that, but it's just I just like to have a little due diligence there and a little extra space in my network. It's not VLAN isolation or segmentation or anything. Well, it might be. I don't tend to play around with my wireless network at home anymore because my wife gets unhappy when it goes down. So yeah, you know, firmware, UEFI updates, yes. Your IoT devices, your routers on your ISP routers, all of that stuff should be getting firmware patches. It's interesting because things like bulletins and firmware and security updates. I was reading about some interesting legislation in the UK called CRA, new legislation called Cyber Resilience Act, and it is a if you make products that contain a digital component. It requires manufacturers and retailers to ensure cybersecurity throughout the life cycle of the product, which includes things like sending out security updates. The lack of timely security updates for products, there's it addresses the inadequate level of security in many products and the lack of timely security updates. Um, New requirements will make it easier to take cybersecurity into account. Selecting and using products, there'll be like a trademark or a standard mark, like a Universal Labs or no, or Underwriter Labs kind of a bit on there. Yeah, CE marking, that's what it is, to comply with the requirements. They're still working on this. It actually entered into force in 2024. So, what you might see is more news articles coming up in the next year as companies who are pushing out IoT devices or electronic devices have to publish uh, potential security bulletins for those things. Yeah. Um, it has mandatory requirements for manufacturers governing the planning, designing, development, and maintenance. Obligations must be met at every stage of the value chain. And the Act also requires manufacturers to provide care during the life cycle of their products. So if you release something, you're required by EU law to support it for X number of years, depending on whatever is good. So it's an interesting way that the EU is trying to do this. Maybe it will funnel back to the United States. Not sure, or be being done in places like Argentina, Brazil, Canada, Mexico, other organizations in the Western Hemisphere that will be also doing similar. But yeah, they say the main obligations start in 2027. So we've still got a couple of years for you know companies to work on getting this process set up. But we'll probably see more news articles that will bleed on like bleeping computer and elsewhere when you know some company will release a security bulletin or what have you. So, but if you use these devices in your environment, like a smart TV, like if you've got a Samsung TV on your conference room door, you need to secure those things, right? Get your make sure your IT and folks in your office are updating those because they're connected to the network usually. Your smart board and your smart conferencing systems need to get their regular updates and that. So make sure they get their firmwares and their UEFI and BIOS updates if they're computer based. I can't imagine anybody still using anything like lower than TLS 1.2 or 1.1. Uh, Insecure default configurations, yes. Change your passwords on your routers. Don't put your interfaces to your admin interfaces to your Cisco routers exposed to the internet. There's always better ways of doing that if you need your service providers or whatever to access those devices. There's always a better way of doing that than just exposing it to the internet. I think we saw that on one of the last episodes. We were talking about 600,000 devices were connected to the internet based on Shodan or Shadow Server or something that was being possibly able to be taken over by CVSS Level 10. So yeah, I think they go through here. Let me put this up here. I don't want to go through the whole thing, but it is a good read. Some of those things I would say take with a grain of salt. Any just update to secure FTP. Okay, what's the risk and reward? Will it lessen impact? Have you had problems with NTP spoofing? Uh, that kind of thing. So um, I think this is a big one here. Out of a lot of these, I think this is one that might be one of the easier ones to look at. Your orphaned cloud assets. If you've got S3 buckets that are missing, or if you have given up an S3 bucket and you're still referring to that S3 bucket in your code or in your traffic or something like it says, hey, if you have given up that S3 bucket, it could be possible for bad guys to reclaim that bucket and if there was diagnostic data going in there, say from an older or legacy kind of device, um, it's entirely possible to collect that information. If you've got it going to, referring to old DNS endpoints or something like that, that may have been from a previous, M&A or something like that. If it's, if it's trying to make lookups to older devices or older systems that don't exist that might, be taken over by a domain registrar registering an old domain, you might actually have to keep hold of old domains for decades. And it's important to know that once your orphaned assets or your cloud sprawl has gotten to the point where well, we don't need domain 123 anymore, we'll just not pay for it anymore and it'll just go away. Well, if you've got stuff that was maybe sending to domain 123 in the past and somebody re-registers that domain, I'm not saying that they would be able to capitalize on that, but there may be ways that they could use that to launch attacks or send email that looks legitimately like an older version of your company that would be trusted. Um, but yeah, just there's definitely a supply chain. Yes, code reuse, forgotten dependencies. Maybe those dependencies don't need to be used anymore. Your app includes libraries updated when Obama was president. Yeah, I mean, if they haven't updated those and it has been a while, yeah, you might want to take a look and see if there's newer versions of those tools or better versions of those things that are available. Generating S bombs, that's going to be a requirement, I think, for you know a lot of organizations that need to ensure that you're doing the needful. And what are the ingredients in your product, and what do we need to patch for? What do we need to know about when a vulnerability comes along, and when the next lids, not glibc. Well, glibc is a very good one that affects a lot of systems that you don't necessarily know about because it's not a frontline, package or issue. Um, what will be another one? Oh, blanking on that one. What's the one caused a hell of a lot of problems? I forget. But yeah, I mean, you need to, and depending on how deep you need to go, you may need to go second or third level dependencies here. If you had FFmpeg, for instance, if you're processing audio and video, you're transcoding that audio and video in some way, or you're decoding that audio and video stream in some way. Probably uses FFmpeg or some sort of application like that. So yeah, S bombs are going to be good for knowing what's in your environment. So assume security of backups. Backups are only as good as the last time you tried to restore them. So if you've made a backup and never restored it, is it any good? Um, it's hard, and that was rough because it's like you keep making backups because that's what compliance requirements tell you to do. If you're not restoring them somewhere where you can actually review them, you won't actually know if they work until you cross your fingers and hope that when you're restoring them, they actually make sense. But yeah, yeah. Seasoned executive, 20 years of international experience in cyber and digital risk and assurance. Yeah, good for him. It's a fairly solid list. I would just say when you're looking through these, there's probably a good number of items that you could probably look at. Um, Maybe something that might be a quick win or two. Checking your cloud assets in AWS or Azure or Google for that, and looking to see if there's anything that might have an S3 bucket, that is ill configured or what have you. Um, there's a number of things that I think you could probably go through and at least have a couple of items that you could take a look at there. Hmm. I am. Ooh. Yeah. Okay. I think I'm going to need to go in the next about 5 minutes because one, dinner will be here, but two, trick or treaters start pretty early here in our neighborhood. So I want to keep an eye out on that. I'm going to be wunging Twix bars and stuff at kids in a nice way. So um, I didn't get to this one last week, but yeah, there were a lot of F5 devices and services. By the way, F5, I'd love to help you out with this issue. I could bring value to help you, maybe be better. And I would love to work with your cybersecurity teams. So, you know, got to give yourself a beat. No, not a beanbag. That would be mean. That would be mean. Uh, no, actually, we don't have a lot of kids in the area, but we have some younger kids. We don't tend to have the teenagers and stuff that show up, but it is Friday, so we may get a couple extra hours of potential ghosts and ghouls who want Twix and M&Ms and M's and stuff. So this one was interesting. I think I don't know if we talked about this, but CISA came out and said everybody in the government needs to figure out where their F5 devices are. There was an issue where they were finding it nigh impossible to track where all of their F5 equipment is inside the government because of the sprawl, because of the sheer magnitude of F5 devices. It might also highlight the fact that there's a government shutdown, which this was all before the shutdown of the government, but the fact that you know there are essential workers out there who are still working without pay. Because I used to be one of those GS11s that in I think it was 2000, between 2006 and 2005, 2007, there was at least one shutdown where I ended up having to work and I wasn't getting paid. Thankfully, it was only a handful of days, but um, there are people out there who are still having to do all of the patching and all of the checking of devices and doing all the cybersecurity stuff. So um, yeah, it's unfortunate, but yeah, they're definitely having to still continue doing their work for little or no pay in this case. But what I had read was they were having trouble figuring out where all of their F5 devices were, and either that's not by design, but it's because of just the sprawl of the U.S. government and the number of sites and lack of people because of the shutdowns to be able to do that. So there's still there's probably still, I would say, some F5 devices that have not received patches. I don't know for the government side, but yeah, it's hard when you have a disparate system like that to make sure you've gotten everything. Proper inventory is nice, but it's the government doing a CMDB or something on that doesn't make a lot of sense in this day and age. So um, maybe you would use Shodan for something like this, track all your IP address ranges and see where your F5 admin interfaces are. So, but yeah, this was an they were trying to issue an emergency for this because there was a 0 day affecting firewalls. Uh, yeah, it was investigating state-sponsored espionage in May. Um, CISA did not explain why it waited 4 months to issue an emergency directive. I don't know why either. But yeah, there's at least three vulnerabilities affecting ASA devices, appliances. So uh, need a, okay, let me refresh my page here. Okay, cool. But yeah, it's unfortunate that Cisco has as those issues and that or sorry, F5 in this case have had issues. Cisco has had similar issues with CVSS level 10s. Um, yeah, it's rough. It's rough. Uh, hey Cisco, I love you guys. I, I only report on the news. I try not to um, you know editorialize. I think every device manufacturer has issues. It's not um, it's complicated working in you know in those spaces in those arenas because we have to give the users the agency to do what they need to do. And sometimes they think that the easiest way to do it is put an any rule in the firewall just to fix the issue that they have right now. And they'll promise they'll go back and remove the any rule when they're done. Oh, squirrel! And then 3 years later, they forget that it was actually in there. It happens. It happens. And from a product point of view, you can only do so much there. It might be nice to set up red flags, or maybe some of that logging would be like, hey, you have an any rule in your rule set or something like that. But yeah, it's complicated. It's really complicated to do product security, and you can only do so much. Uh, you have to leave it up to the users and the business and whatever their risk appetite is. Um, and maybe you put in some controls, or extra. Hey, you've done a bad thing here. Maybe you should, like Amazon at S3 buckets. It's like, hey, you've left this world readable and writable. Do you really want to do that? Should you do that? And now it's like Amazon, like, yeah, we're going to block that by default. Um, Product teams can do that, but then it hurts their customer uh, customer satisfaction. It makes teams want to do something different, or potentially look other places. So you have to toe that fine line for that. So uh, I think I'm going to go. I'm out of things to talk about right now. I will have more next week, and I think I'll definitely set up something for Tuesday with Mr. Bedford, Ms. Berlin. We will talk about things that aren't maybe layoff inducing. We may touch on that a little bit, but we'll have some comments and have some lively discussion, and I hope everybody will join me there. So if you are hiring, I wouldn't be against a nice shout out on LinkedIn. I am going to try to take a break this weekend to. There's my LinkedIn, linkedin.com/IN/Breakby. If anybody who is a viewer or a lurker is currently looking for a position, feel free to drop a message here, so somebody can find out what you're looking for if you're looking for a position. Otherwise, I'm going to go, and I'm going to enjoy my evening. I'm going to update my resume this weekend, so yeah, I've got some work I need to do. And if you want to reach out, just say, hey, I would love the positive vibes. So hope everyone has a good weekend. Take care, and we will talk to you all soon. All right.